And in this quick fix, I'm going to show you how to replace the knives in a Delta TP305 planer. To get started, we need to remove the dust hood on the rear of the planer. With the dust hood out of the way, now we have access to the knives. There's 6 screws that hold the knife locking plates to the planer. I'll go ahead and remove those next. There's some springs behind the locking bar that'll push it up and out of the way. You just want to be aware of those. And there's the 2 springs. Now I can go ahead and remove the knife from the cutter head. I like to use a magnetized screwdriver to help with this because the blades are very sharp. And now I'll just repeat this process on the other side. Now that we have the knife out of the planer, we can take a closer look at it. You'll notice that the knife is sharpened on both sides. So if you've only used one side of your knife, you can just simply turn your knives around, put them back in your planer, and you're ready to go. If you've used both sides, then they need to be disposed of and replaced. You can't sharpen these knives because the way that they lock into the cutter head, that holds the knife at the proper height. And by sharpening the knives, you'll alter that height and your planer won't cut correctly. I've only used one side of the knives on my planer, so I can go ahead and turn the knives around and reinstall them. But before I do that, you'll notice there's some debris on the underside of the knife. There's also some debris on the cutter head, and before I put the knife back in, I need to clean that off. If I let this stay, over time it'll keep building up to the point that it'll actually bend the knife and the knife locking plate and really damage the planer. So I'll just take a minute and clean all that off before I reinstall the knife. And I'll also take a moment and wipe down the cutter head. Alright, now I've got everything all cleaned up and we can go ahead and install the new knives. With my knives, I've gone ahead and flipped them around so I have the good cutting edge facing me, and also you'll notice I have the bevel facing up. That's the way it goes against the cutter head. Again, I like to use my magnetized screwdriver to help me place the knife onto the cutter head. And I just line up the tabs on the knife with the pin on the cutter head. And that sets the proper height for the knife. Now I can go ahead and replace the cutter head springs. They go over the top of the screw holes on the 2 outer holes on the cutter head. Next, the cutter head locking plate. And I'll place the 2 outer screws where the springs are in first. I'll tighten these outer 2 screws down first, and again you'll notice there's a couple pins that align the locking bar with the cutter head, one on each side. Again, you'll notice that there's 2 pins, one on each side of the locking bar, that align the locking bar to the cutter head. You'll just want to make sure that those line up. Okay, with the outer 2 screws in place, now I can go ahead and replace the remaining screws. Okay, now I'll go ahead and just give a final tightening on all these screws, and then flip the cutter head over and repeat the process on the other side. And with the new knives installed, now it's just a matter of replacing the dust hood.